The Xiongnu rode around it. The Jurchen broke through it. The Mongols systematically dismantled its defenses. The Manchus walked through a gate that someone opened for them from the inside. The Great Wall, the largest defensive structure ever built by human hands, failed to single-handedly determine the outcome of any decisive large-scale invasion across 2,000 years. If a defensive line cannot play the deciding role at any critical moment, perhaps it was never just a defensive line. Consider the record. The Qin dynasty built an early version of the wall system, but the fortifications were still incomplete, and the Xiongnu continued to raid across the border. The Han dynasty maintained the wall, but what actually drove the Xiongnu back was Emperor Wu's offensive campaigns deep into the steppe, not a wall. The Tang dynasty largely abandoned the wall's upkeep. It used an entirely different strategy, playing steppe tribes against one another so they checked each other's power. The wall served no purpose for them. The Song dynasty could not even control the territory where the wall stood, and its defense line retreated far to the south. The Ming dynasty poured enormous resources into rebuilding the wall into the structure we see today. Against routine small-scale raids, it was effective. But in decisive conflicts, victory and defeat were determined far beyond the wall itself. In the Tumu Fortress incident, the failure was not a breach of the wall, but the collapse of a decision to march out, and the emperor was captured inside the wall's own perimeter. Then came 1644. The man standing atop Shanhai Pass that day was not a mason, not a general, but a man forced to choose between two catastrophes. Before Wu Sengui, the Manchu army of Dorgan waited outside the gate, and Li Zicheng's rebel forces occupied the land behind him. He chose to open the gate and let the Manchu army through. Everything that 2,000 years of building and maintaining the wall had cost in labor, in treasure, in lives, became meaningless the moment one man made one decision. The wall's effectiveness never depended on the wall itself. It always depended on the people guarding it. No wall, however strong, can stop a door opened from the inside. If the wall repeatedly failed to decide the outcome at critical moments, why did every dynasty keep building it? For 2,000 years, generation after generation poured vast resources into maintaining something that could not win a war on its own, unless its real value was not what most people assumed. The Great Wall simultaneously served as a defensive system, a trade management apparatus, and a population control mechanism. In daily life outside of wartime, the latter two functions were by far its most active modes of operation. War was the exception. Management was the norm. In other words, the wall was running at peak efficiency precisely when there was no war. Along its length, the wall was fitted with controlled passes. All legal trade had to flow through these checkpoints, subject to tariffs and inspection. Any transaction without a pass permit was smuggling. The daily work of wall soldiers was not preparing for battle. It was patrolling for contraband, managing border crossings, and monitoring the movement of people. The Ming dynasty established horse markets along the wall, officially designated sites for trade with the Mongols. When the court wanted to apply pressure, it shut the markets, cutting off the steppe's access to iron, grain, and cloth. When it wanted to pacify, it reopened the markets and let trade resume. This leverage did not always work, but it was one of the few tools the empire had to actively influence the steppe economy. The Great Wall was not merely a barrier to keep enemies out, it was a valve to control the flow of trade. And while the wall blocked threats from the outside, it simultaneously restricted movement from the inside. Border regions were perennial gathering grounds for refugees, deserters, smugglers, and adventurers. If large numbers of these people crossed into the steppe, they would carry with them exactly what the empire least wanted to lose: agricultural techniques, iron smelting methods, military intelligence, and even population itself. A nomadic power armed with Central Plains technology was 10 times more dangerous than a purely nomadic tribe. The moments in history when nomadic peoples made their most lethal leaps forward often coincided with inflows of Chinese knowledge. The Liao and Jin were able to transform from raiders into state builders, partly because they acquired Chinese administrative and military expertise through various channels. The wall, in practical effect, restricted this cross-border flow of people, technology, and resources. The logic was identical to the maritime ban. The sea ban restricted not foreigners coming in, but Chinese going out. The empire's core anxiety was never the external force itself, but its own people and resources flowing into a space beyond its control. The wall faced north. The maritime ban faced east. Together, they formed the empire's control perimeter, not to keep enemies out, but to keep its own assets locked in. The story of the Great Wall reveals a truth about all borders. A wall's greatest function is never to single-handedly stop a decisive military invasion. An army truly determined to cross will always find the gap. What walls actually excel at is routine control, managing trade, restricting movement, maintaining order. In peacetime, a wall is an efficient management tool. In wartime, it is an expensive form of psychological comfort. Every civilization that builds a border faces the same paradox. Borders create a sense of control, but a sense of control is not the same as security. The real threat never comes from the enemy climbing over the front. It comes from the flank. No one watched the gate someone opened from inside, or the direction where no wall was ever built. The Great Wall has stood for over 2,000 years. It is one of the largest structures human beings have ever created, but it was never only what most people believe it to be. What it actually accomplished across 2 millennia was managing the empire's border trade, restricting the movement of people, and maintaining a line of control the empire could reach. A wall can make you feel safe, but the distance between feeling safe and being safe may be exactly the thickness of a wall.